AITA for proving my ex-wife wrong after she took half my business? 6 months later, my phone wouldn't stop ringing with her desperate calls. I'm a 34-year-old guy who's been in the home renovation business for a while. I started long before I met my wife. I spent 7 years working under an old master carpenter, learning all the tricks of the trade. This guy was a legend in our area, the kind of guy who could calculate measurements just by looking and be more accurate than any digital tool. He was also tough as nails. He'd tear apart my work if it wasn't perfect, but thanks to that, I became incredibly good at what I do. After those 7 years of hard work, I finally earned enough of a reputation to start my own small renovation company. At first, it was just me, a beat-up truck, and a garage full of tools I'd collected over the years. I started with small jobs, deck repairs, custom bookshelves, stuff like that. But I poured my heart into every project, and soon word of mouth started to spread. Before long, I was getting calls for bigger jobs, kitchen renovations, bathroom remodels, custom built-ins for luxury homes. My business wasn't huge or anything, but I was making good money, and everything was going smoothly. I even had a couple of part-time workers helping me with the larger projects. I was considering renting a small workshop instead of continuing to work out of my garage. Life was great. I was my own boss, doing what I loved, and making a decent living. And then, she walked into my life. I met her at a home design expo where I had a small booth. She came up asking about custom cabinets for her apartment. Honestly, she was incredibly attractive, and I was immediately interested. She was smart, too. She had this confident way of speaking that made you want to listen. We got to talking, and it turned out she had a marketing degree and worked for a prestigious firm downtown. After I finished the cabinets, which she loved, we started dating. That's when she wouldn't stop talking about all these amazing ideas she had to expand my humble little company. Her words, not mine. She kept saying things like, "You're wasting your potential," and this could be the biggest custom renovation company in the city with the right marketing strategy. After a while of dating, she convinced me to let her handle the entire business side while I focused on what I really knew how to do: build top-quality custom kitchens and bathrooms. At first, she just helped part-time with paperwork and scheduling, but soon she quit her job to dedicate herself full-time to my business. She redesigned the logo, created a slick website, and started managing social media campaigns. Like an idiot, I put her name on the business when we got married a year later. I mean, we were life partners, so why not business partners, too, right? Mistake number 1. Looking back, I should have seen the warning signs. She always talked about our future in terms of money and status, never about happiness or building a life together. But I was completely smitten, and honestly, it felt good to have someone believe in my skills so much. We moved to a bigger house, I hired full-time employees, and we restructured the company with a more sophisticated name to attract high-end clients. The money was good, so I went along with it all. The first few years of marriage were decent. We worked hard during the week, went out on weekends, and took a couple of nice vacations. But looking back now, I see the cracks that were starting to form. She'd get angry if I wanted to take on smaller jobs for long-time clients that weren't profitable enough. She started pressuring me to work faster and take on more projects. Quality started to become less important than quantity, which went against everything I believed in. She started hanging out with people from the country club, where many of our new clients were members. I never felt comfortable there. A bunch of pretentious folks who treated contractors like hired help, but she fit right in. By the 3rd year of marriage, we were technically successful. I had a team of 7 employees, a portfolio of high-profile projects, and more work than we could handle. But I was working 70 hours a week, stressed about deadlines, and spending less time doing the detailed carpentry work I truly loved. Instead, I was spending my time managing employees and putting out fires because we were so overextended. Meanwhile, she became the face of the company. She handled all the client meetings, did the estimates, usually too low for the work involved, and made promises I killed myself to keep. I started to feel like an employee in my own company. When I voiced my concerns about taking on too much work or compromising quality, she'd brush me off. "This is how you grow a real business," she'd say. "You have to think big." I still remember the day I realized things were really going south. One of my oldest clients, a retired teacher I'd built a deck for when I was just starting out, called me about a custom bookshelf for his home office. Nothing fancy, but he was on a tight budget. I told him I'd do it at cost, because he'd referred me so many clients over the years. When my wife found out, she lost it. She called me an idiot for working for free and said we weren't a charity. It was in that moment that I knew we weren't on the same page anymore. For her, the business was about status and money. For me, it had always been about the craft and the relationships. But by then, we were too entangled, financially, legally, and personally, to see a clear way out. So I put my head down and kept working, trying to maintain my standards while meeting her expectations. And I have to admit, the business improved with her at the helm. We started making more money. With her handling the clients, I could focus on my work. We took on bigger projects, like a custom library in a mansion, jobs I'd always dreamed of. Our Instagram blew up with before and after photos of our renovations, and we even got featured in a local interior design magazine. On paper, everything looked amazing. We moved to an even bigger, fancier house in one of those neighborhoods with an HOA. I hate those. But hey, she got a luxury SUV, I upgraded my work trucks, and we were even saving a decent amount. The company account was healthier than ever, but I was working like a dog, 80 hours a week, jobs chained one after another. The quality started to slip, and that ate away at me. I'd stay late fixing mistakes because my name was on that company, and I refused to deliver shoddy work. Meanwhile, my wife was spending more and more time with clients. Late nights, business dinners, always impeccably dressed and smelling of expensive perfume. We started fighting more about the business, about the money, about the direction we were headed. When I tried to talk to her about it, she'd tell me I was being insecure and that all this socializing was necessary for the business. Like an idiot, I believed her. I mean, our client list was growing, and they were the kind of high-end clients who could pay a fortune for custom work. So I shut up and focused on the projects, trying to maintain my standards while dealing with her increasingly demanding schedule. There was one client in particular, a real estate big shot with more money than he knew what to do with. Let's call him Richie Jerk. He'd bought a gigantic lakeside mansion and wanted a complete renovation, everything custom, no budget limit. It was a once-in-a-lifetime kind of project. My wife was especially eager to land that contract, saying that if we impressed him, we could end up developing entire communities. We got the job, and suddenly my wife was spending a ton of time with this guy. Site visits, material selections, progress meetings. I was too busy directing the actual work to pay much attention. The job was insanely complex. A custom kitchen with imported materials, handcrafted built-ins throughout the house, a wine cellar with a wine storage system I designed myself. It was incredible work, and despite the ridiculous timeline, I was proud of what we were creating. Richie Jerk was always hanging around the job site whenever I was there, asking questions, watching me work, suggesting changes that would have ruined the design if I'd followed them. But I just chalked it up to another one of those clients who wants to micromanage everything. Annoying, but not uncommon with this type of clientele. What I did find strange was that he and my wife would sometimes disappear for hours for material consultations, until one day, in the middle of dinner, she rushed out saying she had an emergency meeting with a client. According to her, Richie Jerk had an issue with the master bathroom design that couldn't wait until morning. She left in such a hurry that she left her tablet on the kitchen counter. I wasn't snooping or anything, I swear, but while I was doing the dishes, a notification popped up on the screen. It was a message from Richie Jerk, and it had nothing to do with bathroom tiles. I still remember every word of that message. It was explicit about their afternoon together at the guest house of his lakeside mansion, and about plans for their next encounter. How he couldn't wait to taste her again. How she was much more exciting than his boring wife. I felt like I'd been kicked in the chest. At first, I thought maybe I'd misread it. Maybe it was a joke or some kind of misunderstanding. But I picked up the tablet and started scrolling through the message history. Yeah, they'd been sleeping together for months, right under my nose, while I busted my butt building this guy's dream house. There were messages going back at least 6 months, messages with pictures I wish I could erase from my memory. I sat at the kitchen table all night reading their conversations. They talked about me, too. About how naive I was, how I was so obsessed with getting the wood grain perfectly aligned that I had no idea what was going on around me. How I was a skilled carpenter but lacked vision. How she deserved someone who could give her the life she wanted. When she got home, around 2 a.m., I was still sitting there with the tablet in my hand. She saw me, saw what I was reading, and her face changed. She wasn't ashamed. She wasn't remorseful. Her look was cold and calculating, like she was already planning her next move. When I confronted her, she didn't even try to deny it. She just looked me in the eye and said, "He can give me what you can't. A real lifestyle, not just mortgage payments." That shattered me. I'd given everything to our marriage and to the business. I'd poured my heart and soul into building something I thought we were both invested in. And all along, she was just sleeping with a client, planning to leave me as soon as she'd squeezed everything she could out of my skills and my reputation. I asked her if she'd ever actually loved me or if I was just a stepping stone to the life she'd always wanted. She shrugged and said, "Does it matter now?" That night, I packed a bag and went to a friend's house. I couldn't stand to be in the same house as her. The next morning, I called my lawyer and told him to start divorce proceedings immediately. I was done. But what hurt the most wasn't even the infidelity. It was the realization that the business I'd built from scratch, the reputation I'd spent years building, had just been a springboard for her, just a tool to get into the social circle she'd always wanted. And now that she had one foot in with Richie Jerk, I was no longer of any use to them. For weeks, I was a complete mess, sleeping on my friend's couch, not showing up at job sites. But it didn't take me long to snap out of it. Screw her and everything she did. She had no idea what she'd lost. I pulled myself together enough to meet with my lawyer and see what my options were. That's when I realized how screwed I actually was. Turns out, she'd been planning this for a while. She was setting you up to take everything in the divorce. Putting her name on the business was just the first big mistake, my lawyer told me. She'd been positioning herself as the mastermind behind our success, making sure clients saw her as the primary contact, keeping detailed records of every improvement she'd made to my struggling little company. Meanwhile, I was too focused on the work itself, on maintaining my standards, on protecting my reputation to notice how, little by little, she was setting a trap for me. And now I was going to have to fight tooth and nail just to keep what was mine. The divorce was a damn circus from day one. I thought having clear evidence of her infidelity would make things straightforward. How naive I was. Turns out, in our state, cheating doesn't matter when it comes to dividing assets. The judge didn't care that she was sleeping with our biggest client. All he cared about was who had contributed to the marital property, which included my company. From the first meeting, my lawyer warned me things weren't looking good. "She's been preparing for this for a while," he said. "After reviewing our finances, all the client contracts were in both our names. The business account had both our signatures. She had records of all the marketing strategies she implemented and how they increased revenue. On paper, it looked like she'd taken my small business and turned it into a successful enterprise. I tried to explain to the judge that clients came to us for my work, for my reputation, for the years of experience I had. The fancy website and social media just gave us visibility, but the talent and skill that landed those contracts were mine. But apparently, the courts don't care about that. Her lawyer was some hotshot in an expensive suit. I bet his damn suit cost more than my first truck. From the get-go, he treated me like I was some lucky idiot, while my ex was the brilliant business mind who deserved the credit for our success. They came prepared with a whole show. A PowerPoint presentation showing the revenue before and after she joined the business, charts and graphs with spectacular growth trends, client testimonials about how professional and efficient she was, pictures of her at networking events, landing new contracts. They painted this picture of me just being the muscle, while she was the brains behind the operation. When my lawyer presented evidence that I'd built the business from the ground up before she even came along, her lawyer just countered with, "Yes, but it was a small, unstable operation until her strategic vision turned it into a real company." He even had the nerve to say that without her marketing expertise, I'd still be working out of my garage doing small repairs for the neighbors. Meanwhile, she played her part perfectly, dressing conservatively, speaking professionally, and presenting herself as this hard-working business partner who'd been blindsided by my emotional reaction to her indiscretion. She made it seem like the infidelity had been a one-time mistake and that I was blowing it out of proportion to punish her. The worst part was seeing clients I'd worked with for years testify in her favor. People whose homes I'd transformed with custom pieces, who supposedly loved my work, now saying things like, "Oh, we always dealt directly with her. She was so helpful guiding us through our design choices, as if I was just some interchangeable worker following orders, and not the skilled craftsman who actually turned their visions into reality. The company's accounting books didn't help my case either. She'd been clever, making sure every email to clients came from her, every invoice had her signature, every contract listed her as the primary contact. On paper, it looked like she handled everything important, while I just swung a hammer. After weeks of back and forth, my lawyer pulled me aside after a particularly rough day in court. "Look, I need to be honest with you. This isn't looking good." She's positioned herself as the client relations manager, the business developer, the brand builder. Continuing to fight this will drain your resources with uncertain results. My recommendation is that you settle. Settle? Give her half of my business. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Half is better than nothing," he said gravely. And right now, nothing is a very real possibility. The judge is buying her story. If we keep fighting, you could end up with mountains of legal fees and losing majority control of the company. So, against every instinct screaming in my head, I agreed to settle. The terms were brutal. She got 50% ownership of my company. My company, the one I started before I even knew her, the one I built with my own two hands, client by client, project by project. Now she owned half, despite having contributed nothing to its foundation. The day we finalized everything in court was one of the worst of my life. Sitting there, signing the papers that handed her half of everything I'd worked for, while she sat across from me with a smug look on her face. I wanted to flip the table and tell the judge exactly what kind of manipulative, gold-digging snake she was. But I held back, barely. As we left the courthouse, she couldn't resist one last jab. "You'll never make it without me," she said, laughing loud enough for me to hear. Her lawyer nodded, like the sycophant he was, and added, "It's only a matter of time before you fail." I didn't say anything. I just walked away. But inside, I was already planning my next move. They thought they'd won, thought they'd destroyed me. What they didn't know was that I'm not one to give up easily, especially when it comes to business. The first few weeks after the divorce were rough, I won't lie. I was living in a small apartment, sleeping on a mattress on the floor, because she got most of the furniture. I went to the workshop every day, trying to focus on the projects we still had going, but it was hard with her always around, supervising, questioning my decisions on materials and techniques I had perfected long before she knew the difference between a jigsaw and a circular saw. The guys on my team could tell something was wrong. They'd worked with me for years, knew my standards and methods. Now, suddenly, there was this tension, this awkward dynamic where she acted like the boss, contradicting my instructions and rushing deadlines. A couple of them pulled me aside to ask what the heck was going on. I just told them the company was in a restructuring process, and to bear with me. What really stung was seeing her flaunt herself with Richie Jerk at client events, not even bothering to hide their relationship. They'd show up together to monitor the progress of his home renovation, which I was still working on, because my professional pride wouldn't let me abandon a project halfway, not even for this. They'd whisper and laugh while I installed cabinets or finished doors. The disrespect was unbelievable. One day, I overheard him ask her, "When are you going to ditch the carpenter so we can take this business to the next level?" That's when it hit me. They weren't just planning to push me out of my own company. They wanted to transform it into something completely different, something with his money behind it, her face in front, and none of my craftsmanship or values. That night, sitting in my crappy apartment, I weighed my options. Fighting it out in court was pointless. Buying her out, impossible. Giving up, no way. This was my company, my reputation, my work. I wasn't going to let her take that, too. And then it hit me. I didn't need to fight for control. I just needed to let it crash while I built something better, something that was completely mine, and certainly without a dime from Richie Jerk. I couldn't compete directly. The divorce settlement had specific clauses about that. But there were other ways to use my skills, other services I could offer without technically violating the contract. I just had to be careful, methodical, and patient. As I started to sketch out my plan, I felt something I hadn't felt since before the divorce: hope. And underneath that hope, a dark satisfaction at the thought of what was to come. She thought she'd won it all. She had no clue what was about to hit her. That night, I slept soundly, dreaming of the look on her face when she realized she was stuck with half of a business that was about to tank, while I built something new and better right under her nose. A week after the divorce was finalized, she called, acting like it was all strictly professional. Told me, we needed to have a strategic meeting to discuss the future of the company, like we were normal partners or something. And then she tells me to meet her at Richie Jerk's penthouse downtown. Yeah, the same client she was sleeping with behind my back. The audacity of these people, I swear. I considered telling her to go to hell, but my lawyer advised me to keep my cool for now. Don't give her any ammunition to say you're not fulfilling your obligations to the company, he warned. So I put on the least messed up clothes I had, climbed into my old work truck, and drove to that fancy skyscraper, feeling completely out of place among all the BMWs and Mercedes in the parking lot. The penthouse was exactly what you'd imagine. Floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of the entire city, modern art that probably cost more than my annual salary, ridiculously expensive furniture that looked uncomfortable as hell. She opened the door wearing designer clothes I'd never seen her in before, hair and makeup impeccable, like she was about to do a photo shoot instead of a business meeting. Gold digger. Richie Jerk was lounging on the sofa, barely acknowledging my presence with a dismissive nod, like I was the help. And that's when it clicked. All that time he'd been hanging around my job site under the pretense of admiring my work, he was actually sizing up my wife. She had a whole presentation ready, printouts, a whiteboard, a whole spiel to show me her vision for the company. I would handle all the renovation work and team management, while she would take over client communication, marketing, and finances. We'd split the profits after she took a 15% cut for management. Oh, and I'd also have to drop everything to cater to her priority clients, aka Richie Jerk and his rich buddies. These premium clients expect top-tier service, she said with that fake condescending tone that always set me on edge. They need to feel like our top priority, even if that means adjusting other projects. Translation: her new boyfriend's friends skip the line while our loyal clients get put on hold. Meanwhile, Richie Jerk kept smirking from across the room, chiming in with comments like, quality craftsmen are hard to find, but good business leadership is what separates success from mediocrity. Meaning, I was just the hands, and she was the genius. I sat there quietly, letting them lay out their entire plan for my company. They had projections for expanding to multiple cities, hiring teams of carpenters who would work under my supervision, but not interact directly with clients, and eventually opening a showroom in the most upscale part of town. Richie Jerk mentioned he had investment capital ready to help scale the business, in exchange for a percentage, of course. They had it all planned out: a new name, a new logo, a new image, completely erasing any trace of the company I'd built from the ground up. It was clear they'd been planning this takeover for months, probably while she was still pretending to be my devoted wife. When they finally finished their presentation, they both looked at me expectantly, like I should be grateful for this opportunity, like they were doing me a favor by letting me continue working for my own company. I'll have my lawyer review any new policies, I said, keeping my cool even though all I wanted to do was flip their fancy glass coffee table. Her face immediately hardened, that fake smile disappearing instantly. Don't make this difficult, she snapped. You need me, remember? Without my client relationships, you're just a guy with tools in a garage. That night, driving back to my empty apartment, I made my decision. I wasn't going to fight her in court again. That was a losing battle, with her slick lawyer and her mountain of manipulated evidence. I wasn't going to sabotage the business either. There were too many good workers on my team who depended on those paychecks. No, I wasn't going to beat her at her own game. I was going to build something she couldn't touch, and I was going to do it right under her nose. The next morning, I personally called every client we'd ever had. I started with the ones from before she joined the business, but I worked my way through the entire list. I didn't badmouth her or mention the divorce. I just told them I was checking in on their satisfaction with past projects, and that I wanted to maintain a direct relationship with them for future work. Turns out, most of them appreciated that personal touch. People like talking to the person who's actually going to be building their home, not just a well-dressed salesperson. During these calls, I casually dropped in, by the way, if you ever need small repairs or custom pieces done quickly, I sometimes take on independent work on weekends. Nothing that interferes with the business, of course, but if you need something special, I'd leave the sentence hanging, but most of them got the message. I checked with my lawyer. What if I do freelance carpentry while I'm still with the company? He reviewed the divorce settlement. You can't open a competing business or steal clients, but nothing prevents you from taking independent jobs as long as they don't overlap with the company's core services. Meaning, if the company does full renovations and I stick to custom pieces or repairs, I'm good. Exactly. Just keep records in case she tries to misrepresent anything, my lawyer added. That weekend, I quietly started taking on freelance jobs. I'd always loved the detailed, small-scale work, but the business, under her direction, had become all about big renovations. I discovered there was an underserved market. Custom furniture, bespoke installations for tricky spaces, restoring damaged woodwork, things the company no longer offered. I also picked up a part-time job teaching basic carpentry at the community college on Tuesday nights. That served two purposes. 1. Extra money that wasn't tied to the company. 2. Connections with a bunch of homeowners who needed custom carpentry but couldn't afford our company's premium prices. Plus, it was pretty rewarding to pass on skills to people who actually wanted to learn. Meanwhile, I kept showing up every day at the main company, doing my job, managing the team. I made sure to be the model employee, always on time, always professional, no complaints about the increasingly ridiculous deadlines or the way she undermined my authority in front of the team. What she didn't know was that my side hustle was slowly growing. I was building a reputation for doing high-quality custom work at fair prices, all through word-of-mouth referrals. I was careful to work only with clients who weren't doing business with the main company, focusing on small jobs the company wouldn't even consider taking. The guys on my team noticed something was up. Despite how toxic the work environment was becoming, I was less stressed. One evening after work, my foreman, Mike, asked me point blank, "You got something going on the side, don't you?" He didn't say it accusingly, just curious. I didn't confirm or deny, just shrugged. Just focusing on the parts of the job I can control. He nodded, understanding perfectly. "Whatever you're doing, it's working. And if you ever need an extra hand on a weekend." He let the offer hang, and I thanked him. By the second month, I had steady freelance work for evenings and weekends. It wasn't huge, but it was enough to start building a financial cushion outside the main company. I was exhausted, yes, but it felt good to work on my own terms, without her breathing down my neck rushing things or needlessly cutting corners. My carpentry students at the community college turned out to be a bonus. Homeowners learning DIY who often needed help with projects. That meant more small jobs, more experience, and more people knowing my name. Meanwhile, my ex was driving our original business straight into the ground at record speed. She hired a recent construction management graduate with a fancy degree but next to no practical experience to replace me as head carpenter. The guy couldn't tell the difference between oak and pine without a label, but he had a degree and could talk the talk, which, apparently, was all she cared about. She rebranded the company with a pretentious name, jacked up the prices by 40%, and rented a ridiculously expensive showroom in the fanciest part of town, where Richie Jerk and his friends hung out. The showroom was a complete waste of money, all glass and chrome, with little material samples and sleek 3D renderings of projects, but nothing that showcased the actual craftsmanship that had built our reputation. She also hired an interior designer to make concept boards and took professional photos for a new catalog. Meanwhile, the actual workshop, where the real work got done, was being completely neglected. Richie Jerk poured a ton of money into the expansion, throwing around cash like it was nothing. They bought a new van with the new logo, acquired a bunch of new equipment we didn't really need, and hired 2 more office staff to handle the supposed increased demand they were sure would come. They were spending money like they already had contracts signed, when in reality, they were just burning through the company's reserves and Richie Jerk's investment. Then, right on cue, the call started. Just as I'd expected. First, she demanded that I train her new carpenter and his team. She wanted me to teach them everything I'd learned in over 15 years of the trade in 2 weeks. I refused. I reminded her that wasn't part of our agreement and that I had my own projects to manage. She lost it, started threatening me with legal action for breach of contract. My lawyer assured me I had no obligation to train my own replacement, so I stood firm. Then came the complaints about the quality of the work. Turns out, her college-educated carpenter knew theory, but zero practice. Clients were calling complaining about cabinet doors that didn't close properly, poorly cut moldings, uneven or bubbly finishes. Instead of fixing the problems, she tried to blame me, saying I was withholding key information about our processes, as if the fundamentals of quality carpentry were some secret recipe I was refusing to share. Then came the legal threats. Since I wouldn't get involved in fixing their mistakes, I got an official-looking letter from her lawyer accusing me of deliberately sabotaging the company by not intervening. "You're sabotaging the business on purpose," she accused me in a particularly heated phone call. "I don't make decisions in your business," I replied calmly, enjoying how much that infuriated her. "Our business," she corrected, her voice shrill and tight like it always got when she was really angry. "Your name is still on it, so clients expect your quality. Then maybe you shouldn't have sidelined me," I said before hanging up, not giving her a chance to respond. The problems piled up fast after that. Her team of inexperienced carpenters couldn't match my quality, no matter how many YouTube tutorials they watched. Clients complained about shoddy work, crooked cabinets, doors that jammed, drawers that didn't slide smoothly, all those little details that distinguish professional work from amateur hacks. On top of that, she expanded the business too quickly, without the skilled labor to fulfill the projects. She signed contracts for 3 large renovations scheduled at the same time, not understanding that carpentry isn't a job where you just throw more bodies at it and expect good results. They started missing deadlines left and right, and when clients enforced penalty clauses, the profit margins, which were already tight, went to hell. My sister, who shared some social circles with my ex, became my insider into the world of club events and charity dinners where she flitted about. "She's telling everyone you're being difficult and sabotaging the company," she told me one night over beers. And people believe her. Some, but a lot of them have seen the new work and know it's not the same. One client showed me pictures of her new built-ins. Honestly, they look like a weekend DIY project, not professional work. That made me feel a little better. People were noticing. My reputation for quality wasn't being destroyed by the shoddy execution of her business. Meanwhile, my freelance work was growing at a good pace, completely under her radar. I partnered with local interior designers who appreciated my attention to detail, worked with realtors staging luxury homes for sale, and built a reputation for reliability and quality, all while technically still showing up at the main company, just enough so she couldn't legally accuse me of anything. 5 months after the divorce, I got an unexpected text from my ex's mother. We'd always gotten along. She was a no-nonsense, practical woman, and I suspected she'd seen through her daughter long before I did. She'd remained mostly neutral during the divorce, but she'd made it clear she was disappointed with her behavior. The text read, "She's running the business into the ground. 3 negative reviews this month, and they're having cash flow problems. Thought you should know." I thanked her for the information, but I wasn't surprised. You can't maintain a reputation for quality by cutting corners and rushing the work, and you can't maintain profitability while hemorrhaging money on unnecessary expenses like fancy showrooms and overpaid but inexperienced employees. Then something amazing happened. Clients who had hired my ex's business started seeking me out on the side to fix the shoddy work of their botched renovations. It started with a loyal client of years. He had gone ahead with a built-in entertainment center we'd planned before the divorce, assuming the quality would remain the same. When the finished product ended up looking like something out of a discount furniture store instead of custom work, he called me directly. "Look, I know things are complicated with the business," he said awkwardly, "but this isn't up to your usual standard. Can you come take a look? I'll pay you whatever you charge for your freelance work." I went over that weekend and was horrified by what I saw. Uneven staining, visible screws where there should have been plugs, gaps in the joints you could fit a credit card into. I ended up rebuilding half the unit, and the client was so grateful that he recommended me to several friends who'd had similar experiences. One of those referrals turned out to be a retired contractor who'd hired the company for a bathroom renovation. He became an invaluable contact after I fixed his poorly installed tile and shower. He could immediately see the difference in quality and workmanship, and he knew exactly who to blame for the original botched job. He referred me to several colleagues, and every time I went to fix something her team had messed up, my reputation grew while hers plummeted. 5 months after the divorce, my ex's lawyer called mine. My client wants to discuss a buyout of her share of the original business. This was the first sign she was desperate. The business must have been tanking even faster than I'd anticipated if she was already looking for a way out. but I wasn't going to make it easy for her. My lawyer asked for the terms, and when he told me, I laughed out loud. She wanted double the current value of the business, as if it hadn't plummeted under her management. She wanted me to assume all outstanding debts, which my lawyer estimated as substantial, and she wanted me to sign a non-compete clause that would prevent me from working with any of her clients for 5 years, which would kill my growing freelance business. Tell them I reject the offer, I told my lawyer, but keep the door open for future negotiations. I knew things could only get worse for her, and I could afford to wait. 2 weeks later, it all came crashing down. The company couldn't make payroll, half the team quit, projects stalled, clients threatened lawsuits, suppliers demanded payments, and Richie Jerk, previously so eager to invest, suddenly backed out when real money was needed. Turns out impressing my ex was fun, but his accountant wasn't going to fund a sinking ship. I just kept growing my freelance work, documenting every failure. I knew she'd come crawling back sooner or later. I just had to be ready. Call it pettiness, call it karma. She tried to steal what I built without understanding the craft behind it. Now she was learning the hard way. You can't fake quality, you can't run a business based on appearances alone. And the best part was, I hadn't broken a single rule. I was still showing up for work, still fulfilling my legal obligations. I was just patiently waiting while her empire crumbled. Until one day, she showed up at a job site, unannounced, dressed in designer clothes and perfect makeup, but she looked tired, stressed. We need to talk. The business is in trouble. I know, I replied, continuing to work. You need to get more involved. Clients are asking for you specifically. I show up when scheduled. The rest isn't my problem. This is ridiculous, she snapped, losing her composure. You're being spiteful. We both know you're just doing this to get back at me. I'm doing this because you took half of something I built and then expected me to work for you. What did you think was going to happen? She left crying. That night, my phone wouldn't stop ringing with her calls, which I ignored. The next day, Richie Jerk called, saying he wanted to talk man to man. I didn't want to see his face. I mean, who does he think he is? But I went out of curiosity. When we met, he slid a folder across the table with a new buyout proposal. This time, fair market value. But that value was significantly less than what the business was worth before the divorce. Why would I buy back half of a failing business? I asked. He looked surprised. Because it's your legacy, your name. My legacy is my skill, not a crumbling company. He leaned forward, dropping the pretense. Listen, she's impossible to work with. The business is hemorrhaging money, clients are leaving, and she blames everyone but herself. I can't keep funding this. That sounds like a problem between you and your partner, I replied, standing up. I'm not interested in the buyout. Soon after, I learned she was trying to trap me by doing side jobs, accusing me of unfair competition against our joint business. A client who'd hired me to build custom built-in shells was worried after getting an aggressive call. She said they could sue me for hiring you, she told me anxiously. That was the last straw. I had my lawyer send a cease and desist letter. But she went further. She filed a lawsuit claiming I'd violated our partnership agreement by doing freelance work. My lawyer was ready. We presented evidence that my independent carpentry was within my rights, testimonials from clients who had sought me out to fix her shoddy work, and evidence of her mismanagement. The judge dismissed her case quickly and ordered her to pay my legal fees. A couple of months later, just as I predicted, the business completely collapsed. They couldn't pay the bills, the carpenters quit after not getting paid, and multiple clients had ongoing lawsuits for unfinished or faulty renovations. My ex and Richie Jerk ended their relationship amid mutual recriminations about who was to blame for the failure. He pulled his financial support, leaving her with a mountain of business debt. The expensive showroom sat empty, with eviction notices taped to the door. The day after I heard the news, she showed up at my door. Please, she begged, eyes red from crying. I've lost everything. The business, my relationship, my apartment. I need help. I looked at her for a long moment. You were right about one thing, I finally said. I couldn't make it without you. She looked hopeful for a second. I made it much better. I finished, closing the door and going back to my work. She had to declare bankruptcy, both for the business and personally, as she had guaranteed several loans. A year after the divorce, my freelance work turned into a full-time business. I don't have a fancy showroom or a marketing team, just my skills and a reputation for honest, quality work that spreads by word of mouth. I hired 2 full-time apprentices from my community college class, talented young guys eager to learn. And that's where I met my current girlfriend. She was taking the carpentry class as a hobby. Turns out, she's an accountant by day and loves doing DIY projects. We hit it off immediately when she started asking me a million questions about proper joinery techniques. Unlike my ex, she appreciates the craftsmanship and the value of doing things right. We've been together for 8 months, and we just found out we're expecting our first child. It's crazy, man. I never thought I'd have another chance at a family, but here we are. She's already saying our kid is going to have the most amazing handcrafted crib in the city. The last I heard of my ex, she'd moved to another state, trying to escape her reputation. Ironically, she's now working as a salesperson at a high-end home improvement store, selling mass-produced cabinets that only imitate the craftsmanship she once had access to. Sometimes I think about what she said that day in the courtroom. "You'll never make it without me." She was dead wrong. I didn't just make it. I rebuilt something much better right under her nose. Something authentic, built on craftsmanship and integrity, instead of appearances and empty promises. As for her empire built on lies and shortcuts, it crumbled as quickly as it rose, proving what I've always believed. There are no shortcuts to quality and no substitute for integrity. Edited to answer some questions. Yes, this is 100% real. No, I'm not going to share information about my freelance business. Don't want to expose myself. And yes, I'm much happier now with my pregnant girlfriend, without that toxic relationship dragging me down. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.